Hello, my friend. Today you will learn English, not from a textbook, but through the true story of a man who inspired the world. His name was Nelson Mandela, a man who was once called a criminal and later called a saint, a man who lost his freedom for 27 years, but never lost his soul, a man who walked out of a prison and into the hearts of millions. This is not just a story. It is a lesson in strength, a lesson in hope, a lesson in the power of words, patience, and forgiveness. And as you listen, you will not only understand English, you will feel it, you will live it. Nelson Mandela was born on July 18, 1918, in a small village called Mvezo, located in the eastern Cape of South Africa. His birth name was Rolihlahla Mandela. In his Xhosa language, Rolihlahla means pulling the branch of a tree. But more often, it was understood as troublemaker. Later in school, his English teacher gave him the name Nelson, a common practice during colonial rule. Mandela's early life was not one of luxury or wealth. He was born into the Thembu royal family, but he grew up in the rural countryside, herding cattle and playing with other children in the hills. His home had no electricity, no running water. His mother cooked on an open fire, and his clothes were simple, yet his heart was full. When Mandela was just 9 years old, his father died. The boy was devastated. But this loss brought a new beginning. He was sent to live with the powerful chief Jongintaba Dalindyebo, a respected leader and the regent of the Thembu people. The chief raised Mandela as his own son. In the royal household, Mandela learned about justice, leadership, and the traditions of his people. He listened as tribal elders debated, not with fists, but with words. He learned the power of speech. He learned the importance of listening. As a young man, Mandela attended the University of Fort Hare, a respected school for black students. There, he studied English, politics, and law. But he also learned something else: how to stand up for his beliefs. When students were forced to obey strict rules, Mandela protested. As a result, he was expelled. When he returned home, the chief, his guardian, was angry. He wanted Mandela to marry and settle down. But Mandela had other dreams. He refused the arranged marriage and ran away to Johannesburg, South Africa's largest city. In Johannesburg, Mandela's life changed forever. He arrived with no money, no job, no place to live. He worked in gold mines and later as a clerk at a law firm. But in the city, he saw something far more painful than poverty. He saw the cruelty of apartheid, a system of racial segregation created by the white minority government. In apartheid South Africa, black people were treated as less than human. They had no right to vote. They had no right to own land. They had to carry passbooks showing where they could go. They could not live in the same neighborhoods as white people. They could not ride the same buses or use the same bathrooms. Mandela was shocked, angry, but most of all, determined. He joined the African National Congress, ANC, an organization that had existed since 1912 to fight for black rights. At first, the ANC tried to work within the law, peaceful marches, letters, petitions. But nothing changed. The government responded with violence, arrests, and cruelty. Mandela knew he had to do more. He studied law, became a lawyer, and opened South Africa's first black law firm with his friend Oliver Tambo. Every day, poor people came to their office, people who had been beaten, arrested, or forced from their homes. Mandela fought for them. He listened to their stories. He gave them a voice. But even as a lawyer, Mandela saw that the law was not fair. It was a tool used by those in power to control the weak. So he made a decision. A difficult, dangerous decision. He would no longer fight the system from within. He would fight it from the outside. In 1961, Mandela helped form a secret group within the ANC called Umkhonto we Sizwe, meaning spear of the nation. This group believed that nonviolent protest was not enough. They began to plan acts of sabotage, not to kill people, but to damage buildings and send a message. We will not be silent. Mandela wore disguises, used secret names, traveled from city to city in the shadows. He became known as the Black Pimpernel. The police searched everywhere for him, but he was always one step ahead. Until one day in 1962, they caught him. Mandela was arrested and charged with leaving the country illegally and encouraging workers to strike. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But while he was in jail, the police discovered more. Evidence of his work with Umkhonto we Sizwe. He was put on trial again, this time for sabotage and treason. During the trial, Mandela stood tall, in front of white judges who hated him, in front of cameras from around the world. He gave a speech that would never be forgotten. He said, "I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society. It is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." The court sentenced him to life in prison. Mandela was sent to Robben Island, a cold and lonely prison in the sea. His cell was tiny, just a mat on the floor. No bed, no toilet. He spent his days breaking rocks in the sun. He was allowed one visitor every 6 months, one letter every 6 months. His prison number was 466/64. He was the 466th prisoner in 1964. The guards tried to break him. They gave him the worst jobs. They insulted him. They tried to take away his dignity. But Mandela never gave in. He studied in secret. He taught other prisoners to read and think. He practiced kindness, even to his jailers. He believed that even in chains, a man could be free. Outside the prison, the world was waking up. People in America, Europe, and across Africa began to protest. "Free Mandela" became a cry of justice. Artists wrote songs. Writers published books. Students marched in the streets. The world demanded his release. But the South African government refused. The years passed. 10 years. 15. 20. Mandela grew older. His hair turned gray. His body weakened. But his spirit stayed strong. In the prison, he built friendships. He forgave his enemies. He planned for a better future. And then, in 1990, something changed. The government, under President F.W. de Klerk, realized that apartheid could not survive. The pressure was too great. The people had spoken. After 27 years, Mandela walked free. The world watched. The cameras were ready. Reporters stood shoulder to shoulder. And then, a tall, calm man stepped forward, dressed in a simple suit, holding the hand of his wife, Winnie. A smile on his face, a fire in his eyes. Nelson Mandela had returned. But he did not return with hate. He did not return with anger. He returned with a message of peace. Mandela worked closely with President de Klerk to change South Africa. They ended apartheid laws, opened schools, released political prisoners. For the first time in history, black and white leaders stood together. In 1994, South Africa held its first free election. Black people stood in line for hours, some for the first time in their lives. Some cried. Some sang. And Nelson Mandela was elected the first black president of South Africa. He was 75 years old. As president, Mandela brought unity to a broken nation. He invited his former jailers to dinner. He forgave those who had tried to destroy him. He wore the green jersey of the national rugby team, once a symbol of white pride, to show that the nation was one, black and white. He said, "If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner." He served only one term. Then he stepped down. Because true leaders know when to lead and when to let go. In his later years, Mandela became a global figure, a symbol of peace and wisdom. He started foundations to fight AIDS, support children, and promote education. He spoke around the world, but his words were always soft, thoughtful, and filled with grace. He believed in the power of learning. He believed in the power of forgiveness. He believed that no person is born hating another. He once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." On December 5th, 2013, Nelson Mandela passed away at the age of 95. The world mourned. Cities went silent. Flags lowered. Leaders flew from every corner of the globe to say goodbye. But Mandela had not really left, because legends never die. He had become more than a man. He had become a light, a guide for anyone who feels small, afraid, or unheard. My friend, as you learn English through this story, you are doing more than understanding words. You are understanding courage. You are discovering what it means to rise, even when the world tries to pull you down. Nelson Mandela lived a life full of pain, injustice, and sacrifice, but he turned it into strength, into wisdom, and into love. He forgave. He listened. He changed a nation without firing a bullet. And now, his story lives in you. When you feel tired, remember his prison. When you feel voiceless, remember his speech. When you feel alone, remember his walk to freedom. And never forget his words. It always seems impossible until it is done.